Go.
All right, welcome to a special edition. Hey, Joe, it's our Christmas Eve edition.
Christmas Eve, we work it.
Christmas Eve, baby. We never stop working. We always deliver the news for you. How about that? Listen, man, so last night, and this isn't boxing related, so don't get too excited. This is based on the UFC. This is a very interesting story, man, because I tell you, UFC 232, and we actually talked a little bit, we touched on it on the show last night, and you know, we were kind of excited about it because it's a big, you know, Jon Jones coming back and he's fighting Alexander Gustafsson. Rematch. The first fight was a good fight. Most people thought Gustafsson won. But, you know, so they're having the rematch now, and Cyborg and Nunez is on the undercard. The card is stacked. No, I mean, this is like their end of the year card. It's a stack.
Yeah, this is a great card. They've been putting on some really good cards lately.
Yeah,
we got to give them credit because they're pretty solid from top to bottom with these cards as of late.
Yeah, and I think I believe this is the card that BJ Penn is on, and it doesn't even make the pay-per-view portion. It's on like the undercard portion.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, because BJ Penn, you know, he's definitely well past his prime, but definitely a big name. So that lets you know how stacked this whole thing is, and we'll run down the card here in a second. But the reason we're coming to you today is that UFC 232, Jon Jones apparently had trace amounts of Turinabol in his system. His USADA test came back right before the fight, and he had trace amounts of Turinabol. And this was the same drug that, ironically enough, he was suspended for. The trace amounts showed up in his system. The Nevada State Athletic Commission said, you know what? We're not going to sanction the fight. And you know what? Good for them. Good for them.
They didn't have enough time to do an investigation. That's what they said.
Yeah, they don't have time to do that. And so they're not going to sanction the fight. So they make a call to the California State Athletic Commission.
Oh, they'll sanction anything. Remember the Eric Morales? What was the fight there? Francisco Vargas versus Orlando Salido. When I think I forget.
Yeah, was it tested positive for that? Yeah, clambuterol or what?
Clambuterol. Was it Vargas that tested positive for the clambuterol?
So it was one of them. I don't know who it was.
I think it was Vargas, and they allowed the fight to go on. So
well, listen, Joe. They just sanctioned Tito Ortiz versus Chuck Liddell.
Yeah,
Chuck Liddell's what, 50? You know,
close to it. Yeah, like 48. Ridiculous.
I mean, close enough that when you saw him in the ring, he shouldn't have been fighting.
He's a year younger than me, and I couldn't go friggin' 3 seconds in a UFC cage.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, you watched Liddell, and you watched him on the pads, and then you watched him in that fight. Couldn't move. You know, he had trouble getting up and down on that scale. You could see he had a hip issue or something.
Yeah, he walks with a limp.
Yeah,
and we don't know if that could even be neurological. We don't know.
Who knows? Who knows?
You know,
but California had no problem sanctioning that fight. You know, hey, whatever. You know, so the fight has been moved. They moved the card. This is like unprecedented. 6 days before the pay-per-view, one of the bigger pay-per-views of the year. 6 days.
Nuts.
They moved the card. Beeb. They moved it. They said, okay, from Las Vegas, now we're going to go to Los Angeles, 4 hours away if you drive.
Bananas.
What about all those people that paid and bought tickets for this? All the fighters? I mean, let's just forget about the fans for a minute. What about all the fighters that have people coming in, trainers, so on? How is this going to, you know, and a fighter brought this up. Somebody brought this up last night. What about the weight cutting? You know, could it affect the weight cutting issue for certain fighters? Yeah, I think it can. Because, you know, now we got to pick up and move because this idiot can't stay clean.
Well, this is going to sound kind of petty, but this is what, you know, this is something that people don't realize. Now everyone's going to be under stress now because you're upsetting the apple cart. They were already mentally prepared to be in Las Vegas. Now they got to go to California. They got to pack up and leave. It's a lot of stress on them all. And when the body is stressed out, what does it release? Cortisol. And cortisol is the worst thing in the world you want in your system when you're trying to cut weight, because that's the fat hormone. You know, that's the hormone that wants you to hold on to weight. You know, that's the hormone that tells you let's start comfort eating. And these guys are going to be all stressed out. Jon Jones is going to be all stressed out. And you know, this is the same substance that he tested positive for a year and a half ago. Same substance with the picogram again. There was like a trace amount the first time. Now there's a trace amount this time. And didn't he have a whole bunch of negative tests come up? And then all of a sudden, I think the one on December 9th was positive. So, this is all a red flag here, and there's something going on with this guy. It's hard for us to put our finger on, but it just doesn't seem right, because if this was so common, then why don't all the fighters test positive for this with trace amounts in their system? If this was such a minor thing that is really not out of the realm of normalcy here, why wouldn't everyone else test positive then?
All right. Yeah. Well, and their contention is, well, it was in a tainted supplement, and the conspiracy theory behind it, of course, it's not proven. It's a conspiracy theory, is that supplements are made in China in bulk. And some supplements good, some supplements not so good, in the sense that they put illegal stuff in it, like, these steroids and everything like that. So they put these in vats, and they say that they don't clean the vats out. So there'll be trace amounts in
they said that last time.
You know how ridiculous that sounds? Listen, I'm not trying to be an idiot. Do you know how ridiculous that sounds?
And you know what the response to that is going to be? Don't take fucking supplements. Take vitamins. There's not going to be anything in vitamins. Stop taking these testosterone boosters that don't work. Stop taking these dick pills. Stop taking all this shit, and just freaking train the old-fashioned way, and don't put anything crazy in your system. There's no need for it.
Well, you know what? And the UFC has a program, has that UFC center. I don't know, and I think you've seen it too. Where, and I think it's I don't know where it's at. I thought it was in California or Nevada, maybe.
Yeah, it's where they all train. That's right.
UFC training place.
Yeah,
and they have dietitians on staff, and they have all the supplements you could ever want there, and it's all free if you're a UFC fighter. And they can go there and they can take supplements. They can get free dietary advice. They can get dietitians assigned to them. They can work out there. I mean, there's no reason for this. There's absolutely no reason for this nonsense.
No, there really isn't.
Yeah, and Bad Bart he said the UFC Performance Center in Vegas. Yeah, that's absolutely right.
It's a beautiful facility.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, it's really amazing. And if you're a fighter, I mean, it's like a playground. I mean, it's anything you could possibly want is there.
Yeah.
Now the big question is, like, what is Tyrannobol? And, because they said, I heard it said when he was busted the first time for it, and we'll go over his list of, things today. But I heard when he was busted for it the first time, they said it was like a weightlifting drug.
But it was like a real old school type drug that no one really uses.
The East German Olympic team used it. They got a strong history with it. And they said, and I heard it was for like powerlifting, so it's not necessarily going to help him. Well, that's not entirely true. And number one, when Jon Jones was off for those 2 years, and I off in quotes, suspended, he became what? Big into powerlifting.
Yeah.
Very big into powerlifting. I mean, he was not competition wise, I don't believe, but he became very big into powerlifting and lifting weights and everything like that. Listen, it just goes hand in hand. Tyrannobol is also used as an ideal weight cutting, and I'm getting this from I think it's LVD or something like that, LVD website, and LVD I don't remember.
It's also used as a masking agent too for other drugs, they said.
Absolutely is. It's a cutting agent during periods of fat loss or pre-contest preparation due to its inability to convert into estrogen. All right, so that's a big thing too. Tyrannobol's capability really shine as an adjunct to other anabolic steroids when it's stacked with other anabolic steroids due to its inability to bind to SHBG, which whatever that is, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. Yeah. When you get into steroids and when you start looking at this stuff, I mean, it's all broken down to like molecular stuff and stuff that's, let me tell you what, way above my pay grade. I mean, I'm a computer guy. I mean, you probably know more about this, Joe, than I do, because you with dietary and stuff like that. I mean, you probably know more about this, but I am very ignorant to the subject. I'll tell you that. Just know what I read.
Oh, it's crazy too. Is if you follow fitness and stuff, and you go on YouTube and you watch these YouTube channels.
Yeah,
there's so many drugs out there now. Jay Cutler, 4-time Mr. Olympia. He was talking about steroids, and he was talking about performance-enhancing drugs and stuff. He says kids are coming up to him today and asking him questions about drugs he's never even heard of. So, this stuff is just constantly evolving.
Yeah.
And I said this a long time ago when they started saying they were going to have this extra drug testing protocol for combat sports. I said, you know what? The list is going to get bigger and bigger every year, and more things are going to be on it, and more people are going to stop popping positive because the list is going to be ever expanding, and it's just never going to stop because every year they add stuff to it. And
Sure.
you know, in the case of the meldonium situation with Alexander Povetkin, you know, WADA put it on the ban list, but I don't think, you know, VADA had it on their ban list, but they just used the WADA protocol, and WADA put it on the list, not knowing much about it, not knowing how long it stayed in the system. So they kept coming out with these rules for it and saying, okay, well, there's a cutoff. They had a cutoff date where you could have a certain amount in your system. Then they changed the cutoff date. And then, you know, at the beginning of the year, they changed the amount. It was just, they just kept fumbling around with this drug and kind of trying to figure out what, you know, the parameters are going to be for a failed test according to this drug, because they didn't know much about it. They didn't even know what it did. It was supposed to be a heart medication, but now, you know, it was alleged that it kind of sped up the heart and gave you more energy because it released adrenaline in your system and increased your heartbeat and all that. But who knows? Who knows, you know, how many drugs are out there, what these drugs do, you know, what people are using to mask certain things, and people are microdosing. There's so much stuff out there, and I've always said this, and I don't care what people say. I don't have any proof, but I have what I like to call circumstantial evidence, which is looking at people and looking at ages and looking at bodies, and that's circumstantial evidence, in my opinion. And when I look at guys in their 40s and, you know, late 40s to mid 40s, and their bodies look better now than they did when they were in their 30s, that's a red flag. And when I see a guy who moves up in weight 2 or 3 weight classes, and he's throwing more punches at the higher weight class at an older age than he did in the lower weight class in a younger age, that's another red flag. And when I'm looking at guys' heads, and I'm looking at their necks, and I'm looking at their backs, that's another circumstantial evidence red flag. So I suspect, you know, anyone at the top level, whether it be top 5, top 10 fighter, I think they're all doing something, in my opinion. But it's just, you just got to prove it. And a lot of these guys are smart enough, and they got a lot of smart people around them, and they're working with guys who are really, really knowledgeable about the science. Victor Conti, for instance. You know, none of those guys, Shane Mosley and all the Victor Conti people, they wouldn't have got caught if that lab was not rated. They were all passing the drug test. Shane Mosley was passing the drug tests. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing. We don't know what's out there. Jon Jones, for whatever reason, he could be microdosing. Who knows? This is all speculation. But again, the circumstantial evidence is there.
Well, that's funny you say that, because that's speculation, is that he is microdosing or whatever. That's what I've read and everything. You know, here's the deal too, is that now this is what shocked me, is that they didn't cancel this fight. UFC 200, the biggest fight, I mean, the biggest card in UFC history was UFC 200. And Jon Jones, DC, main event, Jon Jones pops. You know, they canceled it. And I thought that was great, man. That's amazing that they canceled that they show they're really on this, that they really believe in what they're doing in the VADA or the USADA or whatever, and the drug testing, and they're really going to hold people's feet to the fire on this. So he gets tested here. An abnormality, they said it's a picogram, and the way you describe the picogram, Joe, is that like if you put a grain of salt on the table, 1 grain of salt on this whole table, and you split it into 50,000 pieces, it's one of those 50,000 pieces or whatever the case may be.
Because the grain of salt's like an eighth of it, like a 16th of a teaspoon.
Yeah.
The 16th of a teaspoon. Think of that.
Right.
That's like a pinch.
Yeah.
Back in the day when your mom used to make that tomato sauce, take a little pinch of the salt and throw it in there. That's all it is.
Right. That's right. You know, but my thing is, okay, how is it not out of his system yet? And they said, and they also said that the defense that they gave, the UFC has given this defense with Jeff Nowitzki and everything, the Golden Snitch, and Dana White. They said, hey, you know, they said it's not anything ingested. It's not new. This has been in his system. Ariel Helwani came back and asked, you know, how do we know that? And Ariel Helwani had a Twitter page where he talked to somebody, And the guy said, there's no way to know that.
No,
there's no way you can tell me if it's
all of this is
or new. None.
All of this is damage control. Let me ask you a question, and I don't know. That's why I'm going to ask you, because you probably would remember this. When was the UFC bought by? Was that WMI? What's the company that bought the UFC?
Yeah, I think it's WMI, and it's a couple years ago, maybe. I think a couple.
Was that so? When they canceled that UFC 200, right?
Right.
Was that before the UFC was sold? Or after?
I believe it was before it. It
was before it. So you got to understand. You asked the question: why was that canceled, and why was this not? Well, you got new people in charge now. So maybe if the Fertittas were involved, who knows?
Yeah.
Well, so we don't know. Maybe this is something because of the new ownership that they didn't cancel this. Maybe because there's been rumblings that a lot of these shows are not doing, the revenue and getting the return that they've hoped for. There's also rumblings that even though, with the success of Conor McGregor with the Floyd Mayweather fight and the success of Khabib and Conor McGregor, there's a lot of other fights that are underperforming in terms of pay-per-view buys and stuff like that. And there's also been rumors that the UFC is not making as much money to cover that purchase. What did they put up $4 billion for the UFC? Am I correct? Is that the figure?
Oh yeah, that's it. And
so have they recouped any of that money? I know that because a lot of these shows aren't doing. They're doing okay, but they're not doing great.
Everybody kind of harps on that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Million. I mean, you talk about buying something for 400 million. You're not going to turn a profit. You're not going to turn a profit. I mean, you're looking at years before you actually turn a profit. And so it's real easy to say, when they're losing money, but who?
But here's the thing, though, Eric. You have some projections,
right,
of how much you want to make a year to be on track to eventually, obviously cover that, right? So I've been hearing, and again, strictly speculation and rumors, that they're not making as much money as they anticipated they would be.
Yeah, and Bad Bart is in the chat, and he actually seems like he follows the stuff pretty well here. He said the WMEIMG is the company that bought him, and he said they went from expecting 500,000 buys per pay-per-view to 150 to 200,000 buys. I don't know how they were expecting 500,000 buys per pay-per-view, because that wasn't. That's a lot, man.
It's a lot.
That is a lot, especially when you put on as much programming from the UFC as they do. I mean,
that's the problem. That's the problem. They water down their, they water down the sport. Having a pay-per-view every month is ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, that, and on top of, look, you have a ton of shows between their Fight Pass and everything like that. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts in there.
Absolutely.
And he just said that's what they were getting a couple of years ago per pay-per-view. But again, with the purchase, and I believe, with TV deals and everything like that, they expect more out of you, and you've got to produce more shows.
Absolutely. Without question.
Back to the topic, man. I tell you, and so they were, Dana White and Jeff Nowitzki came out and said that they don't think that Jon Jones took anything extra. They have no proof that he took anything extra, or he didn't take anything extra, other than this test that says, hey, he's got this in his system.
Yeah.
I don't get it. And I don't understand why they would move the entire card. I mean, I don't understand it, man. And, everybody, not to mention in from a fan perspective, if I got front row tickets, do I got them at the Staples Center or wherever it's moving to?
It's a good question.
And can you sell? I mean, the other thing is, are we, it's like as a UFC, are they able to sell that arena out?
Well, here's another thing.
In 6 days?
Here's another thing.
I don't know.
Everyone that bought that ticket in Vegas, are they going to drive the extra 3 hours to go to California? Or are they just going to say the hell with it?
Yeah. I mean, what about the plane tickets? And
are they offering refunds?
They are offering refunds. They said you will get a full refund. If you bought a ticket and you don't want to go, you can get a full refund. If you want to go to California, they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And they'll get you situated there.
And then Jon Jones was on Insta. I think, I'm not sure if he was on Instagram.
It was Instagram, yeah.
It was on Instagram. And I couldn't, remember if it was Instagram or YouTube, but he's on there and he's saying he's buying a lot of people tickets and stuff like that. And he was crying and this and that. I mean, come on, man. There's just something gone awry here. Something is fishy. Something does not add up. And it seems as though there's just going to be a cloud that follows this guy wherever he goes. And if Daniel Cormier was considering fighting him, I don't think he's going to want to fight him now.
I would.
I don't think he's going to want to fight him now because you're going to sit there
back and forth on social media the past day or so. Ever since the news broke, they've been going back and forth, and I wouldn't fight him.
You're going to sit there and train for a fight, prepare for a fight for weeks, probably 8 to 10 weeks, and then as the fight nears, it's going to get canceled, and all that time you put training, you wasted. I mean, that's who's gonna want to do that as a fighter? That's the worst feeling in the world.
Yeah. I mean, and let's go over his rap sheet here. On January 6, 2015, this has been going on since 2015.
Yeah.
Jones checks into a rehab facility after it's revealed he tests positive for cocaine prior to UFC 182. April 27th, he turned himself in after a hit and run with that pregnant woman, left the pregnant woman injured. And that's when he fled from the car. He just left his car there and just boated. There was marijuana found in his vehicle. July 6th of 2016, he was flagged by USADA for a potential doping violation and was pulled for the UFC 200 main event. November 2016, he was issued a 1-year ban from USADA, retroactive, from the July 6th test he failed. August 22nd, 2017, he's flagged by USADA, notified of a potential violation. That's where the Tyranobol was in there. And then on September 12th of 2017, the USADA confirms the B sample from his failed test matched the A sample. So both samples came back bad. This was not a fluke. I don't understand. Like I said, man, I don't get it. This guy, I mean, for whatever reason, can't stay clean, but now you're just accepting it. You cannot so what? He's just going to have this in the system, and he's the only one allowed to fight.
Yeah, it just doesn't sound right.
No, it doesn't sound right at all. And everybody looks bad in this. Everybody looks bad. And Nowitzki came out. Jeff Nowitzki came out. The UFC's head of drug testing or whatever he does there. He comes out and Jon Jones just has really bad luck. Yeah, right, exactly. It's all because if you listen to Jones, that's what it is. Just bad luck, So it said, I read that it's supposed to stay in your system for 20 days. That it's really supposed to stay in your system for a couple of days. But in reality, it could stay up to your system for 20 days. This was a year and a half ago.
Crazy.
A year and a half ago. Right? A year and a half. And you want me to believe that the same amount of drug that was tested that was in his system is now the same amount in his system a year and a half later?
Does not make sense.
What, are we all stupid?
There's something wrong here.
Everybody's dumb here but you.
There is something wrong here.
Jeff Nowitzki, Bad Bart just says, Jeff Nowitzki is the head of drug testing PR. Should have had him on the show today.
That would be fun. That would be funny.
That's what he's talking about over here.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't get this whole thing. I don't understand why he's allowed to fight. And they asked it, well, why wasn't he drug tested prior to this? And did he pass? And yes, he did pass, and he was drug tested prior to this, and those samples did come back. But apparently there's a more comprehensive test. I guess the closer it gets to the fight and they test you, it's a more comprehensive test. So it's like the full battery of testing, I guess. So,
And I guess that there wasn't enough time for the Nevada State Athletic Commission to investigate here, so they just said, the hell with it.
I guess if I could put it into like regular terms here, like if you go and get a test at your doctor, like a blood test for like your A1C, like your sugar or something like that. And then, but they don't know if you have high cholesterol because they didn't take that test. When you go for a physical, you get a complete workup.
Yeah.
That's what I'm guessing. Maybe it just tests for this, and this. And then now it's a more deeper test where that's kind of what I chalk it up to. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah. That's a good assessment.
But yeah, I don't. What are you gonna do, man? I mean, this is nuts. And everybody in the UFC, all the fighters are completely irritated with this. I found no like positive comments coming down the pike for this from any fighter.
What's Gustafsson?
Yeah, and that's the funny part. Yeah, that's the funny part too, is that he was doing a tour of the Grand Canyon via helicopter. You know, Vegas has those tours or whatever.
Yeah.
And he was gone for 4 hours. He was probably the last one on the card to know it had been moved. So when he got down, I guess he was given the info. But Gustafsson said, hey, you know what? Go ahead and juice up. It doesn't matter. I'm still going to finish you on Saturday or whatever. So, you know, he's got that mindset. And
I hope he loses.
I hope he finishes John, man. He's not going to, but, you know.
I hope he loses.
John's juiced up. So what are you going to do? You know. So the main event on 232 is Jon Jones versus Alexander Gustafsson, of course. The co-main, Chris Cyborg versus Amanda Nunes.
That's what I'm looking forward to.
That's a good fight, man. That's a good fight.
That's an awesome fight.
So it sounds like her shopping cart incident is fine, and she's good to go. Another good fight, Carlos Condit versus Michael Chiesa. That's a great fight. Alira Latifi versus Corey Anderson. That's another good fight. Chad Money Mendez versus Alexander Volkanovski. Another good for that. That card is stacked, and that's the main event. Now, the prelims, Kat Zingano's on the prelims. Andrei Arlovsky's on the prelims versus Walt Harris.
Wow.
Let's see here. BJ Penn and Ryan Hall on there. I mean, it's nuts. Let me see what the early prelims are. Nathan Wood. Uriah Hall's on the early prelims. When was the last time Uriah Hall was on an early prelim?
I know. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's
even the prelims are stacked.
Yeah,
even these prelims are stacked.
It is. It's just looking at some of the comments in the chat here.
Yeah, they're pretty brutal.
Yeah, right.
We're not going to say anything.
Oh my goodness, man! It's totally Andy Farley. Who is Andy? Yeah, in Bad Bart just said it's Andy Foster. Who exactly is Andy Foster in regards to what's going on here? Is he with Osada or who is he with? I don't know.
I'm not 100% sure, Eric.
So Bart, give us that information because
tell us who Andy Foster is.
Okay, Andy Foster is the head of the California State Athletic Commission, and that's who Ariel Helwani had talked to. And he's the one that said that there's no way to know if it's new or if it's old. There's no test to determine that.
And we talked about this before. Any one of us can call the commission. The commissions are very accessible. Like for instance, when the McGregor Mayweather numbers for the gate, I called the Nevada State Athletic Commission. What was the reported gate? And they tell you. They'll tell you.
Oh yeah, New York is very accessible as well. I mean, we called them a couple of times. I mean, yeah, they're all very accessible.
Yeah, and they're receptive to answering questions. Is not a problem.
Yeah, and the UFC is saying that this is like more of a common sense approach where like it's innocent, but it's the same stuff he got popped for. And you could say, hey, it's the same stuff that he got popped for. Why would he be stupid enough to do it again? Because he's a criminal. He's an idiot. He's not smart. I mean, how many times has he been busted for this?
He doesn't care, this guy.
He doesn't care.
He doesn't care.
I don't know. Ringside. Real microphone for this end zone for Christmas. I have a real microphone, son. The microphone probably costs more than your car, okay? So just take it back a notch.
Here we go again with the Best Buy warriors in the chat.
I know, yeah. Go get one from Best Buy, dude. Yeah, go get one from Best Buy.
Go on Amazon and spend $3,000 on a microwave so I can make some goofball in the chat happy. Guy can go get his rocks off.
Oh, he's talking about okay.
Oh, it's about Robbie. Okay, sorry about that.
I'm gonna let that slide. Martin, I apologize. You have a Merry Christmas. I'm gonna let that slide.
Robbie doesn't even have a computer. How's he gonna get a microwave? Where's he gonna put?
And he came in not ringside of Robbie.
a microphone, I should say. I said microwave.
Incidentally, Robbie, just for all, he uses a telephone. He doesn't even have a microphone. He uses a telephone.
Yeah. Robbie's crazy. He doesn't have anything.
Robbie refuses to get in the age, man. All right, man. So listen, man, that's all we got for you guys today. So go ahead and catch 232, and it's a good impromptu show, man. I like this.
Yeah.
Thank you, nice. Jon Jones. All right.
All right.
All right, guys. We will catch you soon.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah, happy holidays, man.
Yeah.
Robbie's the Unabomber.